6 Wilkerson kids, 20 years, and every single one of them turned out completely different from what you would have predicted watching them grow up. So today I'm ranking all 6 from whoever got dealt the worst hand to the one who somehow came out on top after everything this family put them through. This was a household where Lois ran every room she walked into, where Hal could not function without some elaborate emotional spiral, and where chaos was just the background hum of everyday life. These kids were put through the ringer from day one. Francis got shipped to the military academy and before most teenagers even have their first job. Reese spent half his school career failing every test he took. And Malcolm was one of the most academically gifted kids in the country and spent most of his childhood being genuinely miserable about it. Dewey was quietly composing piano music and drawing on every wall in the house, while the rest of the family was too busy surviving to notice he was a prodigy. And then 2 more kids showed up later and barely got full arcs of their own before the show ended. Fast forward to 2026 and Life's Still Unfair drops, and suddenly we get to see how all of it actually landed. So let's go through every single one of them. Kelly is the hardest one to place on this list because they were not in the original show at all, and their entire role in the reboot is built around being the family's most clear-eyed observer. The youngest kid sitting in the middle of 2 decades of accumulated chaos. What makes Kelly interesting is how naturally they fit into this dynamic, despite being brand new to the audience. They describe themselves as the family whistleblower, and the dynamic between Kelly and Reese is one of the funniest things in the whole miniseries. 2 people who both think they understand exactly how to play this family, and who spend most of their shared screen time trying to drag each other down, which is the most Wilkerson thing imaginable. 4 episodes is not enough to build a full arc for a brand new character, and Kelly ends the miniseries without a concrete life situation we can point to and call a win or a loss. Jaime is one of those characters where if you ask someone who watched the full original run to list every Wilkerson kid in order, they will probably forget him at least once. Jaime arrived in the season 4 finale, and as a baby and toddler, Jaime was actually wild in the best way. The episodes where Lois goes to full battle against him and completely loses are some of the funniest moments of the later seasons, and the show made clear early on that this kid carries the same chaos gene as every Wilkerson who came before him. But the series ended before Jaime could really become his own full character, and in Life's Still Unfair, that pattern just continues. Jaime shows up in a Coast Guard uniform looking clean and put together, which is legitimately impressive for someone born into this household. He does not get a real conflict in the reboot. There is no arc, no breakdown, no moment of growth, just a white uniform and a general sense that he is doing fine somewhere. Good for him as a human being, but as a character conclusion, it is the most incomplete one on this list. Dewey is genuinely one of the most fascinating characters this show ever produced, and the way his story ends in both the original and the reboot makes him one of the most interesting cases to think about. In the original series, Dewey was quietly the deepest of all the brothers. A kid who taught himself piano, composed full operas that his classmates performed, and processed the world through art in a way that everyone around him was too overwhelmed to properly notice. I already made 2 videos on Dewey alone, so make sure to check those out after this one. Hal himself says in the series finale that he has high hopes for Dewey and expects him to live a life of fame and luxury, which is the most confident prediction Hal has ever made about any of his children. So, what actually happened? In Life's Still Unfair, Dewey appears mostly through a laptop screen on a video call. He shows up physically for a few brief moments, but for most of the miniseries, he is remote, watching from wherever he currently is, traveling, apparently speaking French now, and by the time the party happens, he does not even seem to remember the name of whoever he is currently dating. He does write and play a piano piece for Hal's tribute that is beautiful and lands exactly the way it should. But his physical absence from the reboot is the most complete of any of the brothers, possibly living his best life somewhere, possibly adrift. Low-key hard to call that a definitive win, even if it is also not clearly a loss. If you had told anyone watching the pilot of Malcolm in the Middle that Reese would end up being one of the more emotionally real characters by the end of the reboot, they would have laughed at you for a reasonable amount of time. Reese spent the entire original series being the most cheerfully chaotic presence in an already chaotic household. But the cooking thing was always the exception, the one thread of genuine passion that ran through his whole arc, the thing he was actually good at even when he refused to let anyone see him try. The series finale had him become head janitor at his old high school after the previous one was fired, which sounds like a punchline, but for Reese was probably the right fit. Someone who likes to take care of a place and the people moving through it without needing anyone to acknowledge he is doing it. The reboot paints a more complicated picture. Reese is selling his underwear to creeps online. He secretly filmed Hal getting hurt while trying to fix things around the house and uploaded those videos, which goes further than his usual chaos in a way that feels a little sad when you think about it. But then at the party, he apologizes to Hal. Actually apologizes. And that moment lands in a way a lot of the bigger scenes in the miniseries do not, because it is Reese admitting he went too far and actually caring about having done it. Francis was always the one who made the most noise from the farthest away. He got sent to Marlin Military Academy before the show even started, spent 7 seasons in constant warfare with Lois from whatever state he was currently in, and for a long time, it genuinely looked like his life was going to be one long series of almost moments and blown opportunities. The Alaska chapter was chaotic even by his standards, working unstable jobs and getting arrested while Piama held their relationship together with what seemed like pure patience. The move to the grotto in New Mexico gave him something real for the first time, a boss in Otto who respected him, a rhythm that suited him, and a version of settled life he could actually tolerate. The moment in the series finale where Piama changes her mind about having children is one of the quietest payoffs in the whole show, because it arrives after years of Francis treating every settled version of his life like a cage, and suddenly here is the woman he loves saying she is ready to go further. And then the reboot takes that thread and actually delivers on it. Francis and Piama are expecting after years of trying together, and after Lois doesn't give him the attention, their bickering starts again, and Francis does anything he can to move up her priority list. So his relationship with his mother is still the same, but at least he still has his old military school friends. Francis found Piama, he found his footing, and now has a kid on the way. It's genuinely a good ending, but I think we all know who got the best after all. So here is the thing about Malcolm. His ending is the best one on this list, but it is also the messiest to get to. And understanding why requires going back to who he was as a kid. Malcolm was the one the whole show was built around, the kid identified as a genius from the first episode, who spent 7 seasons in a constant tug of war between what he was capable of and how little he wanted to be defined by it. The series finale is where all of it makes sense. Lois tells him in the graduation episode that she wants him to suffer, to genuinely struggle his way through Harvard and beyond, because a comfortable life would make him too insulated to actually care about people the way a future president needs to. However, somewhere between college and the reboot, he cuts the entire family off for over a decade, hides his daughter from them, and convinces himself that distance is what a healthy life looks like, which is where Life's Still Unfair picks up and the real story starts. He now has Leah, a daughter who carries the exact same fourth wall-breaking intelligence and self-awareness he had at her age, which is the show's way of telling you that some things get passed down whether you plan them to or not. He has Tristan, a woman he tries to propose to at the party who says no, but who is clearly the right person for him regardless of timing. He runs a charity and is very successful. And he has the conversation with Lois where she tells him he became a good father and a good man, which is the closest thing to complete closure this family has ever produced. Malcolm got the most out of all of them. He also paid the most to get there, and the show is honest about both of those things at once. So there it is. 6 Wilkerson kids, ranked from the most incomplete ending to the most fully realized one. And if you look at the whole picture, it kind of mirrors what made the original show work in the first place. A family full of people with everything they needed to do well, navigating a very specific set of conditions that made it harder than it ever should have been. Malcolm came out on top, Francis is right behind him, and the rest are somewhere between quietly okay and genuinely unresolved in ways the show may or may not ever address. If you grew up watching this family and you have thoughts on where I placed anyone on this list, drop it in the comments because I am genuinely curious what you guys think about the reboot. And if you are new here and Life's Still Unfair brought you to this channel, subscribe because there is a lot more Malcolm content coming soon and I would love to have you here for it.